Anastasia. Now, we have two more Don Bluth movies to talk about, but this is my favorite Don Bluth movie. It is not the best one. I think Secret of Nim is still very much above this one. Land Before Time, maybe. American Tail is kind of maybe neck and neck with this one, objectively speaking. But this one's my favorite for a few reasons. First of all, I love musicals. I love Disney animated musicals, and this is very much aping that style. And I know Thumbelina did that, but we'll talk about what works about this in comparison to that not working. But that's one. And then the other thing is just there's so many sequences in this movie that I think are some of the greatest animated sequences of all time, and they don't really get talked about that much. Um, so let's get into this. So Anastasia, basically Don Bluth, after working with Pebble and the Penguin and some other stuff, was really struggling, and Fox would start up this new animation division, and they knew about Don Bluth's talents, so like, why don't you help us out here? And so he comes in, starts working on some projects, and he does this movie. And let's get the obvious out of the way. Anastasia is based on a history that I'm not going to get into because it's really not than just acknowledging that this movie is very historically inaccurate. And I don't feel like it's historically accurate in a way of like Pocahontas, where it's actually like offensive and kind of messed up. I think I think this very much stands as its own kind of story based on what was a fairy tale at the time, which is that people were running around with the theory that Princess Anastasia somehow survived. If you know, in real life, she didn't. She died. And that is something that was something going on in real life, but it wasn't like it is in this movie, of course. But this is a very beautifully done movie. The sequences in this movie that I really love are that Once Upon a December sequence where she's dancing with all the paintings, her memories coming alive. It is one of the greatest animation sequences of all time. Like, if we were going to break down top 10 greatest animation sequences of all time, I think that would be one of them. And I feel like any list that does not have them, I just discredit at least American anime movies. Maybe Japan would have some different ones. But, like, that stuff is incredible. The music in this movie is great. I think what's great about this movie is, unlike Thumbelina, you actually care about the protagonist in this movie. Anastasia has a very understandable goal of wanting to know who she is and find her place in the world. And not like in a Disney princess way, in like a way of like a person her age. I think she's in her early 20s, 18, 19. She's still very young in this movie, so that is something that a person that age would want to figure out about themselves that age. And it's a very interesting goal, and then, Petrie's a less interesting character, but he's fun enough protagonist, and his little sidekick guy, larger guy with the glasses, I forget his name, very fun character, very well voice acted. All voice acting is great in this movie. Rasputin's a great villain. Just all the stuff really works about here, and it's got a really good character journey, I think, to it. And I think this movie has a fun side character, Bartok, and it's no wonder they gave that character his own spin-off. Though it isn't completely obvious, but when you do watch that spin-off, you can kind of really see why. And it is a really fun movie with that. And so, I do think that some people really don't like how cliche this movie is compared to other Disney movies. I personally think you're silly if you're comparing it to all these other Disney movies. Because don't get me wrong, the Disney cliches are definitely there, but it doesn't feel so cliche. I feel like Don Bluth clearly has his own passion for it, and it's obviously, I think people feel weird about Don Bluth aping Disney because it all feels so rip-offy at times. But I think people forget the guy came from Disney. He has that in him organically, so I think he will just always end up going back to that well, whether he likes it or not. There are so many things he does Disney-esque, but he evolves it in a way. This is a better movie than some of the movies Disney was doing at the time. Not during the whole Disney Renaissance, but like at this time, but this movie came out in 1997. I mean, I would argue this is better than Pocahontas, Tarzan, Mulan. I like those movies, but I'd argue this one's better. So, I don't know, love this movie, and I think this movie super underrated. Let me know your thoughts. Like, share, and subscribe.